But the Raptors, if Damian Lillard after this season requests a trade, they're gonna go after him because welcome everybody back to NBA Now. It's your boy Dom, and we're gonna get right into things here. So today we are talking about Damian Lillard, right? Most likely we're gonna be talking about him getting traded, but most likely he's not gonna get traded this season. This is more of like an after this season type of thing, but it really shows how the Toronto Raptors have set themselves up in a fantastic position. I personally was pretty critical. I know I didn't have any videos on the channel at that point, but I was pretty critical of them passing on Jalen Suggs because I think he's going to be a pretty good player. But if you look at their roster construction, they have a very good chance to go get Damian Lillard in this next offseason. And we're going to talk about why they would do it and how they can do it in this video. So, number one thing, we know the Toronto Raptors GM Masai Ujiri is willing to be aggressive. I mean, he went after Kawhi and they won a championship. So he's willing to be aggressive, but he's also always going to play as smart as he thinks he can, right? Now every GM makes their flaws and every GM can't be perfect, right? But Masai Ujiri is up there as one of the best GMs in the league, right? And so he knows what he's doing. So I'm going to take it back a couple years and we're going to look at that Toronto Raptors team that won the finals. And that team was constructed of plethora of veterans, right? They had been on the team for a bit, along with young players that are still on the team today. You look at Chris Boucher, he was on that team. You look at OG Anunoby, big player for the Raptors now, he was on that team. And although you no longer have Norman Powell, who you traded away, you now have Gary Trent, right? Because you traded him for that. You still have Siakam. And, some of the pieces have been shifted around quite a bit. I mean, if we go forward and we look at what the roster's kind of looking like right now for the Toronto Raptors, it's going to be looking like Fred VanVleet at the 1, okay? And we've kind of already talked about this in the Precious Achiuwa video, so if you guys want to go check that out, make sure you guys go check that out. But Fred VanVleet at the 1. Then you're going to have Gary Trent at the 2, OG at the 3, either Scotty Barnes or Pascal Siakam at the 4, and then a combination of like Chris Boucher, Khem Birch, and Precious Achiuwa to run that 5, right? Again, if you guys want to know more about Precious Achiuwa, make sure you guys go check out that video. But yeah, regardless. So pretty solid. You see a lot of defense in there. You don't know what's going on with Goran Dragic. Masai's probably going to try and get whatever he can out of him. But in this scenario, we're looking at next offseason, right? So some more money is going to open up if Dragic just stays on the team and leaves. And you could still have his contract on the books, too, to make this move essentially work. And so there's kind of two ways that this move, I think, will go down. I think Fred VanVleet is a guarantee to be in the move. The Blazers would want somebody back to be that guard for them, you know what I mean? You don't want to have, although I think they think Anthony Simons is pretty decent, he just never really got the opportunity to expand on what he showed a few years ago, and he's kind of just been the same player, so they're probably going to look to go bring back that 20-point per game scorer in Fred VanVleet, who the Raptors at this point would probably be good moving on from, especially having Malachi Flynn to then refill that backup point guard position behind Damian Lillard. And then it's either going to be, I think, Siakam in the move, if Siakam isn't moved during this season, or it's going to be Chris Boucher and Scotty Barnes in the move. So one of your 4s is going to get moved. I think they try and hold on to OG no matter what in this move. You can tell Masai Ujiri really likes having him on the team. I mean, if he didn't, I think he would already be off the team for like a Ben Simmons move or something like that. And so, assuming that the Raptors, which it seems like they're not going to go for Ben Simmons, I think he'd fit their roster great, but I just don't think they want to pay that asking price for Ben Simmons because Right now he's not a hot commodity, and he's just, it's up in the air, right? Would he want to leave? Would he want to request a trade right afterwards? Because he's pretty much said that he didn't want to be in Toronto type when you look at the teams that he requested to go to, right? But the Raptors, if Damian Lillard after this season requests a trade, they're going to go after him because it's going to put another top 10 player on that roster, right? And I'm guessing that most likely they're going to keep Siakam, because it seems, although Siakam's been in trade rumors and stuff like that, it seems like they want to keep him. And although I think Scotty Barnes is going to bring a lot out of the fans, it's going to really be one of the two that they have to get rid of to bring in Dame. And I think that the Blazers are going to want Barnes more because he's younger, and that will work well for the Raptors because Siakam will be older to still help them contend. Not that he's old or anything, but he'll still be there to help them contend with a newly shaped roster with Damian Lillard. And so I think that's where you look at that Fred VanVleet, Chris Boucher, Scotty Barnes, and I'd say probably 2 unprotected first rounds and a lottery protected first round, somewhat of that nature, because you're giving back a high lottery talent and Fred VanVleet, a 20-point per game scorer. So I think that's your good player. That's not quite an all-star player, but he's a good player. And Fred VanVleet, maybe he could make an all-star jump. Probably not in the West, but maybe in the East. And then Scotty Barnes as your super good young player, along with a couple picks. That's what you're minimum going to need in this type of package, right? I think this is a super good package to offer to the Raptors, to the Blazers, because I think Ben Simmons, I don't know if the Blazers want Ben Simmons for Damian Lillard. I think maybe they would have pushed and been okay with trading Dame, but Dame has made it clear that he wants to stay, and they're not trading. They've not talking to the Sixers to trade Dame or even think of possible trades in the future for Dame, I don't think, because until he says I want out, they have no reason to try and get rid of him, especially for a question mark in Ben Simmons. And this would give the Raptors, so we'll look at the Raptors kind of side of this thing first. So this would give the Raptors pretty much a starting lineup that's going to look like Damian Lillard, Gary Trent, so that'd be a reunion, right? We know that these teams have obviously done deals recently with the Gary Trent, Norman Powell moves, but Damian Lillard, Gary Trent, so that's a reunion. They're going to know each other. That'll be a good cohesive backcourt, and Gary Trent can shoot the ball really well next to Dame. And then, not that Dame can't shoot it well, we know what he can do. At the 3, you're going to have OG to be probably your defensive anchor. At the 4, you've still got Siakam, your second all-star player, next to Dame. Unless OG makes that jump, then he could also be an all-star level player. And then you're going to have Precious Achiuwa probably at the 5 at this point as a super strong defensive interior core still sticks together while still having that talent around Dame. Because the thing with the Trailblazers in recent years is that they haven't been able to find that balance, right? They were one of the worst defensive teams this last year, but because they were so good offensively, due to Damian Lillard, due to CJ McCollum and all that other stuff, they were still a playoff team, right? But if you look at this Raptors team, not only are you going to do that, you're probably going to get somebody in the draft, which you may or may not have to move, but you'll probably get somebody decent later in the draft, as I kind of expect them to at least push into the playoffs, or at least push into the play-in again this year, and kind of start getting back into form. And I think that'll also help Masai make this move. If you're getting back into form, you're going to feel more comfortable alleviating some of your younger pieces in like Scotty Barnes to go get that star player to again try and make that push again. We know that the Raptors are not going to get players in free agency like that. They're not a big market like Los Angeles. Most teams aren't a big market like a Los Angeles or a New York or something like that, or even a Chicago, right? These are pretty much any other team besides those 3 places, and mainly Los Angeles and New York. You have to build through the draft and through trades, and we've seen the Raptors do this before. It would give you a super strong core because Damian Lillard, he can't be the only scorer on your team, and that's what the great thing about this is he's going to spread it out too for Siakam and OG. mainly Siakam to work on the inside. I think OG's a bit more of a perimeter scorer in that aspect, where like he doesn't quite need it spread out like that, but it'll really help with Siakam. And it would probably arguably be the best team that Damian Lillard would have ever played with, right? Not only then are you also in the East, where it's a weaker conference, although it's gotten better, it's a weaker conference, but it is also trying to move away from some players, right? Like Ben Simmons. Most of the teams that he's been rumored to are not in the East, other than the Raptors, right? And obviously in this scenario, they don't have Ben Simmons. So I think this is probably the smartest move and the best move that could happen for the Raptors. And if this happens, I think there's a high likelihood that Damian Lillard could have a Kawhi-like run. I don't think they're going to be the favorites, right? But would you take this team as a very strong, great series against the Milwaukee Bucks, who are the former NBA champions currently, or even against the Brooklyn Nets, where you're going to have defensive players for most of that roster, right? You have multiple guys that you can throw at Kevin Durant, and then like you're very switchable, right, for a team that's gonna have a lot of ball movement and stuff. So that is really good for you. And OG is probably the guy that I would stick on James Harden if I could. That really only leaves Kyrie, and Kyrie's not better than Dame. So if you want to break it down like that, that gives you at least fighting chance against them. So although I think they'd be very similar to the 2019 Raptors, I think this is a very smart move that the Trailblazers and Raptors could make, because in the Trailblazers scenario, you're getting back Fred VanVleet, you still have CJ, you still have Norman Powell, you still have all these guys, and so that still gives you assets. If you want to go into a full rebuild, you can trade away CJ. Right? That's probably where you maybe look to then go get a Ben Simmons if you're the Trailblazers. I would try and move CJ for Ben Simmons rather than Dame if I'm the Trailblazers, because I want to get as much value out of these guys as I can. So I'd probably try and move CJ for Ben Simmons. And then Robert Covington is going to be off the books, so that'll either open up money, or you can sign and trade him to a contender, which, I mean, contenders are looking for that type of player. Yusuf Nurkic will be off the book, so you can decide if you want to keep him as your future center or move off him, and then that'll just allow you to either reset entirely and rebuild, or kind of retool with a, Fred VanVleet, CJ McCollum backcourt, and kind of try and change the roster and maybe get a really strong forward that can kind of be your main guy, right? And I think this is, like, maybe Scotty Barnes is that strong forward for this team when he goes there. But yeah, I think depending on what the Blazers want to do, I think it'd require Siakam if they don't want to have to trade CJ, but if they're okay moving CJ and kind of going a bit younger and kind of in that direction, I think that getting Scotty Barnes is the most likely option for him here in this trade. And I would be shocked very little if this happens next offseason. It's almost like the cards are kind of lining up for it, right? You lose your main point guard as the Raptors in Kyle Lowry. You start to kind of retool, rebuild, bring in some young guys, revamp the roster from the championship team a few years ago, and then you go get another star player and you try and make it happen again, right? Super smart strategy from the Raptors if they can pull this off. And maybe not quite the highest end package that I drew up here for the Blazers, but this is kind of a rough package. It could easily be tweaked. There's a lot of stuff that could happen between the start of this season and the end of it. But if Damian Lillard requests a trade, if I'm the Raptors, I'm full steam heading forward for him and trying to pull off a deal where I can try to make myself a contender again. Because if you can win with Dame, he's going to be loyal, right? I don't think it's like a Kawhi situation where if you trade for Dame, he's not going to stay. Or I don't think it's questionable like a Ben Simmons situation where he said that he doesn't want to stay places. Like, Dame's played his whole career up to this point in Portland. Not a bad city, right? But a smaller market. Not the warmest city, right? It can get pretty rainy there, and stuff. But not bad, you know what I mean? So if he went to the Raptors, he's going to be in Toronto. Probably, I would personally probably rather be in Toronto than Portland if I was just picking the city. So, if you can win with him, the guy will stay. And it could be huge for the Toronto Raptors. So, yeah, this has been NBA Now. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know where you think Damian Lillard will end up if he ends up getting traded. Or do you think Dame is going to play his whole career out with the Trailblazers and be that next true Kobe or Dirk type player? I think it's all up in the air to this point still, but super excited to see what happens with the rest of his career and this next season. I can't wait for this next season of basketball. So, while we're kind of waiting in the offseason, more videos like this will be coming out. Again, appreciate you guys' support on them so far. And yeah, that's going to be it. Thank you for watching NBA Now. Peace.